Hi, hello.
Hi, everyone.
I've got a fan, clearly. No, it's a pleasure to be here, obviously in Miami, but also on this panel here with Petr and Dr. Greg. Really two leaders in what we do, and it really is a pleasure and a privilege to sit here with them today. So I'm Toby Sarabji. I'm the Chief Operating Officer of Longer, which is different to your traditional company. We operate as a platform company, specifically focused on bringing access to the longevity market. And to date, we've launched 2 of our companies, the first of which is called the Longevity AI. It's a symbolic AI large language model and is essentially a free longevity coach for anyone. And that is in beta mode at the moment, and so if you're interested, I'd be more than happy to share a link. Essentially what you can do on the Longevity AI is you can provide information and detail on certain elements of your longevity journey that you're looking to go on, and it will help you to provide a personalized plan in terms of perhaps your nutrition, in terms of your exercise, and it will log it, and it will be effectively an online coach which you can return to at any stage. It's very interesting and very proud of that one. And then the second one, which is just recently launched, is Saints One, which is a all-in-one longevity subscription package, including a personalized daily supplementation, biological DNA testing, as well as a longevity concierge, which is a human interaction to support you along your longevity journey. And so that's where we currently are. We've been going since the beginning of the year, and I think I'll hand it back to you, Petr or
Petr.
Yeah, sure. So, hello everyone. Simply, I'm a managing partner and founder of LongevityTech.fund, which is a VC in the longevity space, focused on early stage or pre-seed and seed investments. We are on the market for 4 years. We have got 44 companies in our portfolio, currently investing from our second fund. And I'm also CEO of HealthyLongevity.clinic, which you may see the exhibition here in the other hall. And the clinic is basically our answer to this question, how to bring longevity therapeutics to the market. Because we are focusing on really on working together with our portfolio companies on clinical trials and finding the synergistic combination of these therapeutics or various approaches to slow down our rate of aging.
Greg Bailey, wonderful to be here, other than dropping my thing here. So what I'm here to do is to try and inspire all of you and talk about therapeutics and how they're going to come to the market and how fast this is going to happen. Most people grossly underestimate that. And my good fortune is in drug development. I've had the good fortune of having my companies go through $28 billion in market cap, delivering the #1 drug in the world for prostate cancer, the #1 drug in its class for migraine, and maybe some of you have seen Lady Gaga talking about how her migraine medication worked. That's our migraine drug. It's now Pfizer's migraine drug. They acquired the drug. And so actually it felt a responsibility about 6 years ago to get into this area that my 2 counterparts here are now excited about as well. And that's because we're at a major inflection point for finding drugs that truly modify how you age. And it was a nascent industry in 2017. I thought we were going to have the ability to raise significant amounts of money. In our case, we raised $294 million, and to bring extraordinary people to the table. So my company's called Juvenescence. We have 7 drugs that are going to be going in the clinic the next 2 years to modify how you age. And so I'm very excited to share with my 2 colleagues here how therapeutics are going to come to the market. Toby, do you want to start us off on what your perspective is on therapeutics coming to the market?
Sure, yeah. Well, I think it's interesting that you say that we're about to go into this period where there may be new drugs that emerge as perhaps what you might think of as a god medicine, the one-stop shop cure for aging. what I think is interesting is that although, of course, there has been research into the area for many years now, as it comes to fruition as a mainstream area of healthcare, actually looking back at some of the treatments and some of the compounds that are already available and people are using, but haven't necessarily been tracked or recorded in terms of their benefit specifically for aging. And I think it's very interesting because actually the way in which our clinical system is currently set up, obviously at the moment the FDA does not consider aging to be a disease, which in itself brings plenty of challenges, I imagine, and I'd be interested to hear more about how you both perceive that. But how do we then work on the development of new drugs when there isn't necessarily a defined clinical endpoint in terms of removing or reducing a certain disease? You're actually working with someone while they're healthy. And I think that requires a shift in the way, perhaps, in which we're collecting data and running the trials themselves. I know that today trials are ever more decentralized, as an example, and there are many different ways in which data can be collecting, not in that setting, of course, being the clinic. And so I would actually pass it back. I mean, I'd be interested to hear what your perception is on the way in which we may have to adjust the way in which we do clinical trials in order to accommodate for what is quite a unique disease to treat.
You want to give us your perspective?
Well, we're looking at this. I actually see two essential flaws in the current approach, of addressing longevity. The first is Formula One is rooted in the approval path, where you essentially cannot approve anything which is not targeting disease, and the aging is not recognized as a disease. So that's basically the main systematic flaw in the overall in everything what or other companies, biotech companies do, because they really need to follow some standard drug and disease-oriented approval paths. But there is a second flaw. It's maybe partially linked to what you mentioned, the design of clinical studies, because traditionally everything is focused on the single compound and treating some symptom or specific disease. So but the human biology is a super complex system. Aging is a super complex process. Everything is connected with everything. So it's really hard, to pick one thing from that system and isolate the effects, see the right endpoints and the clinical, as an output of the clinical trials. This is, by the way, I believe it's one main reason why many clinical trials fail is the not recognition of the individual differences between the participants of clinical trials, because it may work perfectly for some of them, but not for maybe the 80% of them. Still make it a good drug for something or for someone, but it's not going to be approved because the overall results are not good. So the individual approach, and the second part of that problem is the interactions. So we believe that what we want to achieve, addressing aging biomarkers, lies in the synergistic combination of various approaches, starting with lifestyle, across simple intervention, including supplementation, but obviously adding drugs or some other form of therapies like gene therapies. All of that together, but not together at the one point of time, but over some period of time in some logical order and on some specific time scales will create the most efficient combination. And there is nothing like that. There are no one really applying that approach, which obviously is a very complex approach. I know why it is not applied yet, but I think that's the only direction we need to go. Because I don't believe that there will be a magical pill or single drug which will treat the most of the problems we see are related with the aging or even reverse the aging.
I'm going to go to the counterpoint so the two of us can have a bit of a battle here. I actually see it as very simple. If you know a pathway that's part of the anti-aging pathway, you can modify it. And to go to Toby's question about the regulatory and how you navigate with the regulatory people, that is going to be a significant issue. We have the first anti-aging drug in the world on the market today. Ozempic, Wegovy, Mounjaro are anti-aging because they lower your chance of disease, so you will live longer. We also now know how to get it on the market. You go after obesity and you back into prevention, which is what they've done very effectively. We also know the size of the market because of them. $100 to $150 billion a year they're projecting for those drugs. So if you have a drug that truly modifies how you age, and if you go through the conventional regulatory pathway and then back into it, is the way you're going to do it. By way of example, we have a product. It's downregulates something called PI1. And we know from the Amish in Indiana that if they have a downregulated PI1, they live 10 years longer than everyone else in their community. The amazing thing about the Amish is they eat the same thing. They live the same lifestyle. They're exactly duplicate. Perfect placebo trial. Downregulated PI1, you live longer. So how will that manifest as far as regulatory, which is really important, is we will go into a clinical trial because PI1 also downregulates fibrosis. And there's 15% of the developed world suffers from fibrosis of their liver. 13% of the developed world suffers from fibrosis of the kidney. 5 to 10% lung. You modify that, that is a huge part of the developed world. So you can go after that. But we also know that if it's successful, you live 10 years longer healthy. So in 5 to 7 years, we may have that drug for you in the audience, which is why when I come to these conferences, I'm hoping to inspire you people because it needs people thinking about it. It needs money to come in to invest, to move this forward. Biotech's really easy. You try to get 5 to 10 drugs, you try to be right on one. And your chance of a successful phase 2 clinical trial varies 22 to 54%. So 1 in 3, not crazy. You get 15 to 30 times your money. How long would you play at a table in Las Vegas if 1 out of every 3 hands you won 15 to 30 times your money? But you can't make one bet because you're going to lose 66% of the time. So that was how I was fortunate in my predecessor companies to do it. The returns are staggering when you're right. So that's how I see the regulatory and where I think this is so important, these sort of forums, to get this message out to an eclectic mix of people. I think that the two of you are working from the financial standpoint and from the lifestyle standpoint and integrating, and also the chat GPT. How does all this fit together to accelerate the therapeutics?
Well, from my perspective, I think it's largely around education for me. This is obviously an area where it doesn't discriminate. Anyone can benefit from longevity treatments, no matter where you are, no matter who you are. There is obviously a benefit to these treatments, anything that would extend your healthy life. But still today, with my family or with my friends, I mentioned perhaps that I work in longevity, their immediate response is, you want to live forever? And that's always quite that's an odd notion, and I don't think it's something that I personally would promote. But really what we're looking to do is extend health span, extend the enjoyment, the length of time where people can enjoy life. And there's a lot of things that they can do today that would dramatically improve the quality of their life and the quality of their aging. And for me, the roadblock is education, and that's obviously something we're very keen on in terms of the longevity AI. We see it as a really effective tool to cut through the noise, cut through the jargon, and provide people with a personal way in which they can begin to address their longevity. And yeah, I'd say that for me, education is a big part of it.
It's a huge piece. We have a drug on the market right now. You can buy it on Amazon. It's a ketone ester, and it puts you into ketosis. UC Davis showed that if you're in ketosis, the animals that are in it live 13.6% longer. Protects their brain, protects their heart. But now you've got to teach people that because that's not intuitive. It's not what doctors are teaching. So education in the forums that you're doing at your company is so important to make people aware of a very simple product I can take every day that could truly modify my how long I live healthy is on the market. And you're obviously investing in this sector.
Yeah, sure. So we say that I would call it AI or digitally assisted lifestyle and therapeutics. We know there is a digital therapeutics, right? You can do a lot by assisting you in some behavior, which will eventually work like a therapeutic. And AI will play a more and more important role because everything is just too complicated for regular people. So we need that type of assistance. And I wanted to confirm what you said because I even call it not health span extension, but I call it health span expansion because you can really expand this period of life at any point of that time. You can start expansion at the early of your life. Even younger people can start working on that, and just adapt, to accumulate this guidance or assistance from AI, and just start accumulating healthy years. Because it's much cheaper and simple if you're around your 30s or 40s than if you are at your 60s, right? So why not to do that? So that's the very important role of digital assistants and various assistants. We have like 3 or 4 companies in our portfolio with various approaches to help people, to understand and live better. But I think it's the education itself is not enough because people are overwhelmed by various information, and especially everything is getting very individual, right? So one guidance, one right. If you say what is the healthy, what's the healthy food, right, for me, for myself. There is nothing like that, right? I can say what is not healthy, that's probably much more clear, but what is healthy is not as much clear without knowing my specifics, without knowing my biomarkers, my microbiome, everything. And this is where this AI-assisted guidance will play a huge role because it can provide the simple answers to complex questions.
This is a great segue. We're going to leave 5 to 10 minutes for questions for the audience. What are you doing? 1 or 2 minutes on what you're doing to live longer, healthy. And this gentleman who just found out his biological age is 16 years, 1/6 younger than his chronological years, how long he's been on the planet. What are you doing to manifest that?
Yeah, that was a kind of a surprise because we see working with the clinic, so I have access to all these various diagnostics and even experimental ones. And so I've done my first measurement 18 months ago from based on true diagnostics, and it was already after some period of life when I was trying to do the best, and showed 6 years younger, 18 months ago. And just 2 days ago, I received my latest result, and it showed 16 years younger, right? So it was.
What did you do in the past year?
Well, that's the question.
I'm pretty sure you're interested if you're not a decade off.
The point is that it's really not the single thing, right? It's about the combination and about systematic well-informed protocols, having all of this diagnostic information.
I think they're looking for a specific thing. I take this.
I'm certainly avoiding saying any specific thing. Obviously, I'm avoiding doing wrong things. I'm not drinking. I'm not doing like risky activities.
So your regimen is avoiding things.
But I'm also doing a lot of stuff which is available for everyone, but in a smart way, right? It's not like just get me everything what is good and I will take it every day and that will be the game. But that's not the game, right? It must be very, very informed, and you must really know what to do on daily, weekly, monthly, bi-monthly basis. Maybe I can disclose. Like obviously, I'm on a combination of metformin and rapamycin, but it's like a part of the complex protocol. It's not just that you start taking rapamycin, you will get this.
And you're done. Toby, same question. What recommendations do you have for the audience so they can live 10 years longer healthy?
Well, I'm only at the beginning of my personal longevity journey. I'm 26, so really what I look to do is find consistency in 3 areas. The first of which is obviously sleep, and we heard Brian Johnson here, who has an array of different measures that he would look to for his longevity journey. But he really did say that sleep was the #1 priority and something that is obviously accessible for every single person. Consistency in sleep, looking towards foods that are whole, that are organic, and finally exercise, which perhaps I can do a little more of. But I do look to go for a brisk walk each day, and actually for me, I think that's good enough both for my mind and body.
Walter Bortz was head of gerontology at Stanford. He has a mathematical formula for how long you're going to live. He said 15%, 1/5, is genetic, and we know this from twin studies. Although I'll slightly disagree with him, there are certain genes that clearly allow you to live longer healthy. He says that 25% is lifestyle. If you're loved, respected, you'll live longer. And if you're climbing ice cliffs without a rope, not so much. 60%, according to him, is fitness, which again, I disagree with him. I think nutrition plays a significant role as well. But he says if you are fit, mentally and physically, you decline at 0.5% a year. Unfit, 2% a year. So that's a hell of a delta. So those are the things. And then many of the things you already know: the sleep, the diet, the healthy things. Metformin and rapamycin are intriguing products. They're drugs. Rapamycin probably more so than metformin. There's real simple things. You take methylated B vitamins, specifically B3 and B12, and omega-3 and DHA, you lower your chance of Alzheimer's by 30%, potentially. And we have a metric for that, homocysteine. So there's some really good books. Peter Attia, I would recommend. David Sinclair have great books on the subject. Huberman's got his podcast. We are learning so quickly how to do this. Personally, I biohack. I do 4 medications. I do probably 6 to 8 supplements to try and do that, because I'm the old one on here, on this panel. Questions from the audience for any one of them? Yes, Maria. Oh, geez. This one's yours. Yeah, in their community. Very fair comment. I mean, the nice thing about that, and the reason I mentioned the Amish, is because when you're doing a placebo-controlled study, you may have a skewed result. You may find out that some of them sneak a cigarette and they didn't tell you that they're doing that. But the Amish are pretty consistent, so you can compare these two populations. There could be other things within that community that we're unaware of, beside the SERPINE1 gene, which they have a form of heterozygous. So far in the genetic testing, we didn't find it. So that's the genetic one. But it still could falter for another reason that we're unaware of. Maybe it's only in Amish people because they have other genes where there's SERPINE1. But it's a compelling model to test it. So there's certain things where, with a number of the drugs that I've done historically at other companies, I say this drug has to see the light of day. We have to know whether this works because this would have such a profound effect. Do you guys want to comment, or should we kick it to the audience? Yes, sir. I'll throw in 2 comments, and then you 2 guys can take a shot at what I'm about to say. There were a number of other blue zones 10 years ago, and what we found was the most consistent thing amongst the blue zone was they had poor record keeping. There was one in Russia that was supposed to be incredible, and then they found out everybody lied about their age to avoid World War II. So we'll see how this all pans out with Okinawa and obviously the Netflix thing.
Well, I think these blue zones probably make up largely for that lifestyle element of longevity, don't they? It's, for example, in the Mediterranean, you eat beautiful food, you enjoy probably a slower pace of life than we maybe do in London or in some of the major American cities, and a lot of sunshine as well. So that sounds like quite a nice life to live and quite a nice place to be.
Petr?
Yeah, so, well, you see that there are multiple factors in play. Like physical movement, which clearly may be the one of the most important factors in that result. But generally, these studies or these original blue zones are kind of disconnected, from the real world. Even we can think about the real world, how it is bad or whatever, but it's isolated, so it's not as much applicable as it is to other cities. Obviously, if we change the lifestyle in the direction of these blue zones, it will be always to the better, but we can't expect that as alone that will make a significant, profound effect. So, but this is why we are working on other solutions, right? So we can complement this basic lifestyle. We always say in the clinic, we can, what do we see? We have 450 clients, and we can see like up to 10 years, reduction of biological age after 1 year program. But everything is starting with lifestyle and the stabilization. We call it like setting the baseline. And these people in blue zones are probably very close to the baseline, like a normal health, right? Which normal people living in cities, they are not on their baseline. They all have some issues, right? So that's maybe the good start.
I have a question for Greg. So you are in the States. How will HealthyLongevity, the company that will be the biggest longevity company in the world, how do you visualize it in 10 years?
Yeah, it's as Petr said, it's very complicated. So will it be a drug company that gives you 10 extra years of living or prevents Alzheimer's disease? Or will it be a company that regenerates your tissues? And so I think there's going to be, what we've seen in just about every industry, there was 3 major television stations in the United States, networks. There were 3 major motor companies. So you can probably have 2 or 3 that are going to be giants in each one of the sectors. So I think that there will be companies that will have well over $1 trillion valuation. So if you guys are investors at all, Bank of America says it's going to be a $500 billion industry in the next couple of years. Macquarie says it's $1 trillion a year industry by the end of the decade. So if that's $1 trillion a year and you have a 10 or 20 time multiple, you're talking like 10 trillion, 20 trillion dollars. So I think it'll be 2 or 3 major players in each sector who have the profound impact. Sure, either one of you. Hands are popping up all over. Petr, you want to do that?
So how we collect data from the market or the, Yeah, the collection of data. There is another big flaw in the current environment, and that's that we are talking about the big data. There is a lot of data around drugs and everything, but these data are coming from non-health disease population. This is where and why these data are collected. So we are really missing data from healthy, at least from the definition of the current healthcare system, healthy or not disease population. We are missing this data, right? And some of these novel approaches like assistance or digital therapeutics, this is the way how we can collect more data, but it's like in the rudimental state at the moment. So I don't think that there is a applicable data set like a large or even longitudinal study of these, because most of these therapeutics or supplements are just very short time on the market.
Toby, are you collecting data?
Sorry?
Are you collecting data? Your company, is it collating the data on everything?
We are indeed. At this current version, it's only data that the user actually provides to the platform. In the next iteration, it will begin to pull from health data through devices. It will also integrate with any sort of DNA testing or equivalent. And it's your personal journal for longevity, and that is exactly what we'd look to do. We'd look to collect as much data as possible in order to provide that personalized experience.
So we've run out of time, but I know there's some other questions. If the 3 of you are okay with it, why don't we move to the back, and anyone who has questions can ask us if that works for, because I saw a couple of hands, I apologize.